Hey, what's up, y'all? Thanks for coming back for another podcast. In this one, I'm going to mostly be addressing Florida, South Texas, and that little piece of Louisiana that pushes down to the Gulf. Most of you that are staying warm, but I hope all of you will listen because it's always good to learn something new. We're going to talk about when you're mowing, when you're throwing, when you're spraying. Big section on fungicide, but really I'm going to set expectations. A lot of folks coming into Florida this time of year wanting to get their lawns going, looking at them saying, what can I do to improve this, especially after the hard summer that we've been through? And I want to set your expectations properly because getting results now is not the same as if you start in May. With that, let's get into another podcast, and I'll see you at the end. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about some fall lawn tips, and this is mostly going to work for those of you with warm season turf. Cool season, I'll get you guys in the next one. I'll turn another one around here in a couple days and focus it mostly on cool season. I hope you all in the cool season areas will listen, though. I know I always say this because I think you can learn so much because the way we do things in the South is so different from what you do up there. I just think it's good to learn both and understand the strategies of both. It can never hurt. So I also want you to understand that where I live in the center of Florida, or what is called South Florida, I'm in Bradenton area, is a little bit different than North Florida even. You get to Georgia, things change a little bit. So the South is really different. Houston, Texas has the same weather that I do right now, but as we get to winter, that will change. So you got to kind of look at where you're at right now and understand that pretty much Central Florida and South and, Austin, Houston, Texas and South and the Gulf Coast, we're all in the same boat. And the rest of the South, the rest of y'all that are north of that, I wish I could draw like this line, I guess, to understand it. But literally if you look at the Greencast map, you can kind of see it a little bit. There's Florida's all red, most of Florida. A little bit of southern Louisiana is red, and then Houston and San Antonio, Austin, and South is red. And I say red, that's warm on the Greencast map, and everywhere else is a pale orange. So they're still warm, they're just not as warm as us. And this is in soil temps. Those of you who have worked with Greencast like I have for a long time, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about here when it talks about the colors of the map. But either way, there's still time. So here, let me just say this. The first thing we talk about is fertilization, because that's the thing most people want to ask about, but that's not really the most important thing. The most important thing is pre-emergent. For warm season turf, right now, the most important thing, and this doesn't matter, I don't care if you're in far South Florida, or if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, or Nashville, Tennessee, any of those areas, over into Jackson, Mississippi, Arkansas, anywhere, Oklahoma, you guys are all still warm enough that you need to get down your pre-emergent, because it does not snow where you live, and that's what I want to say. If you live in a place that it doesn't snow where it sticks, I'm talking to you, right? That's the warm season turf people I'm talking to right now. All of you are in the window to get pre-emergent down. I like prodiamine because it's easy, it's available. You can also use dithiopyr. I don't have it anymore. A lot of people have asked. I'll work on getting a dithiopyr replacement. We've had to change some suppliers over the last couple of years, and there's just a couple little spots we're having to tidy up there. But prodiamine works if you're not over, which in the South you're usually not. So prodiamine usually works fine in the South, but dithiopyr you can also get. So those are the two things you use. Get your pre-emergent down. The main reason is we want to stop those weeds that are going to germinate all winter because we don't get a cover of snow. And again, I'm talking to those of you in Miami who don't even know what snow is, and I'm talking to those of you in Memphis, Tennessee who get dustings sometimes, or in Branson, Missouri who get dustings, or Tulsa, Oklahoma who get those dustings, right? All of you guys, you want to get that down because Poa annua, henbit, chickweed, hairy bittercress, these are things that will grow. They are adapted to grow in the cooler temperatures, and they will take advantage of the fact that your alpha turf, which a lot of y'all in this, you're all going to either, most of you have, a lot of you have Bermuda, zoysia, St. Augustine grass, some centipede across over to the coastal South Carolina areas, some Bahia grass here and there. But you rely on your grass to help choke out weeds. Bahia being, not the best at that, but all the others, very good at choking out weeds. But when they're dormant in winter, when your alpha Bermuda is dormant in winter, or your St. Augustine is dormant in winter, the weeds that are adapted to grow in those cooler temperatures can poke right on through because there's nothing stopping them. Now, keeping the grass there and keeping it a little taller will help. And so I do not recommend scalping any warm season turf prior to winter. First of all, I recommend never, ever, you can just put this down and you can write this down. It is a hard and fast rule to never scalp St. Augustine grass or centipede. Okay. Now, as soon as I say never, somebody will tell me they did it. Yeah, you can do it. You know what I mean? You can go and cut yourself with a knife and live through it, but I don't recommend it. You know what I mean? It's kind of same thing, right? Bermuda and zoysia, you do scalp, but you do that in the spring. Bahia, never scalp Bahia either. But I don't recommend that in the fall. We want some of that turf material still there because it helps to shade the sun. See, it's the sun that's what's going to wake everything up along with water. But it's really the sun warming things up a little bit lower that are going to do it. And so if you have, this is for germination, but this is also then for the grass growing, or these weeds growing. Once they germinate, if they're underneath the canopy of your lawn that is shading the sun from them, they can't grow as well. Whereas if you scalped it down, now you're allowing them to have full sun. There's not a lot of sun available in the winter, and they don't need a lot because these weeds like Poa annua and Hennenbit and hairy bintercress are adapted to grow in these conditions of winter with low light and that. But if you scalp and you give them more light, now you just helped them. So don't scalp in the fall. That's number one. But you want to get your pre-emergent down to stop a lot of those. Now, it's not going to stop every weed, but it will stop those main ones that pock up your lawn when it's all dormant in the winter, and then you go outside and there's all these green little pock marks everywhere. That's those weeds that are growing. That's those main ones, and the prodiamine will stop that. Now, when do you do that? You do that when soil temperatures fall to 70. Where I'm at right now, Bradenton, Florida, my soil temperature today is 75 degrees. So I'm coming close. In the app, if you have the Yard Mastery app, it's free. You should get it. It looks so pretty on iPhone. It looks good on Android too. But you can go into the calendar section and you'll be able to see there that what it's going to tell you is the time when it thinks you're going to put prodiamine down. For me, it's November 17th. And what it's doing is it's looking at the 10-year average. So it's looking at the 10-year average in past of when does your soil temperature at your zip code, or if you have your address in there, it knows your lat long. When does your soil fall below 70? And for me, the historic time is around November 17th. And so that's what it's telling me to do, is put it down then. Could I put it down now? Sure. We're at a month early. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay to be a month early. I'll probably wait another week and get it down. We are in a cool front right now. And actually, I'm looking at Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas, you have literally the same weather I do right now. So if you're listening to this and you're in Houston or anywhere like Austin, you're the same. You just got a cool front that came through and it dropped your soil temps down, but they didn't really go below 70 quite yet. Is that going to continue? It might. Again, what the app is telling you to do, and again, 70 degrees is the time. But it's the average. It's after it averages 5 days of anyway. It's all calculated in the app for you based on averages and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to put it down now, it's fine. Just put it down. Get your prodiamine down. That's the main thing I want to stress here. Get that pre-emergent down to stop those weeds. Now, the second thing people are going to ask about warm season turf is fertilization. Now, this is where it changes depending how far south you are, how far north you are. The rule that I like to use, it's not really soil temperature, because soil temperatures can stay warm. It's day length. So our grasses, warm season turf especially, is highly susceptible to the length of days. Because it's so alpha and because stolons and rhizomes get so long and so robust, especially at the end of the year after it's been growing all year, coming out of the summer, right? It's been, and especially in Florida, it's been raining. It's thick. It's got this huge plant now to support, but it's got so much less sunlight because that's what plants need, right? They need sun to do photosynthesis, to make sugars, to survive, to live. And so now we have shorter days. And if you have any shade at all, because our leaves in Florida, our leaves don't fall off the trees, so we don't get that advantage. Up further north, you do. All I'm trying to say is they're going to slow down. They're going to become less vigorous, okay? So the soil temperatures don't really matter. It's about day length. So instead of saying you can fertilize at this soil temp, what I do with warm season turf is I blanket say, if you're mowing at least every 7 to 10 days, and really closer to 7 to 8 days, if you're at least mowing once a week or almost once a week, if you're still mowing, then you can fertilize with high potassium and low nitrogen. Like a 7-0-20 stress blend is perfect. And now everybody's copying that. But that's the thing, right? 7-0-20 stress blend. That's what you want. High potassium, because we're coming into winter and potassium can help the lawn through the winter, as well as micros. Got some Bionite in there. Lots of cool stuff. But if you're having to mow every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, go ahead and cut off the fertilizer. Biostimulants are still okay. Oh, we'll go back to the fertilizer. So I don't know. In Atlanta, are you guys mowing in your Bermuda every 7 to 10 days right now? You might be. But if you feel like it's slowing down, if you feel like, nah, it's about to go dormant, that's where you need to rely on your own gut instinct. Now, I feel like my lawn's about to stop. I've been living here 10 years, and typically this is when my lawn goes dormant. Well, then don't fertilize. That's where an app can give you all the technology in the world, but nothing can replace what your eyeballs see and what you know with your own experience. Your own experience is the most important part. So if in Atlanta, if you know that it's too late for your lawn, but some of you in Atlanta might have a different grass type, maybe some zoysia or whatever that likes to go a little bit longer into the season. I don't know. Maybe you have some Raleigh St. Augustine grass up there, something like that. Then you can continue fertilizing. But just realize if you're mowing every 7 to 10 days, it's okay to go high potassium and a little bit and low nitrogen. Now, down for me in Florida, I still got a lot of growing time left. My app is telling me to use Stress Blend, which is fine. But again, this is where I can make a choice. I used Flagship just because I came out of the blackout and I'm like, bro, I'm hammering this puppy, right? So that's what I'm doing. And by the way, pretty much south of Orlando, depending how far south you get, you're going to be fertilizing almost year round. And I have a Florida winterizing guide or Florida winter guide. I'll link it if you're watching on YouTube. I'll be emailing it out. But those of you in South Texas, this applies to you too. You have a lot of the same weather that we do over here in Florida because you're pretty much the same latitude. So a lot of that applies to you. It's a whole different thing. But remember, as a rule for warm season turf fertilizing, it's all about, are you mowing every 7 to 10 days? And if you are, you can fertilize. And if not, you should probably back it down. The last thing is the biostimulants. For sure, humic 12, aerate, those are great anytime. As long as the soil's not asleep, you can apply those. You're not going to apply in winter because most of you just aren't doing lawn care in winter, but you could if you wanted to apply biostimulants. As long as the soil's not frozen, you can apply humic acid, things like that. It'll never hurt. But again, most of you, if your lawn goes dormant, you just don't do lawn care, and I totally get it. But in Florida, yeah, biostimulants, man, crank them up. Texas, crank them up. Gulf Coast, crank them up. Keep them going. Let's keep things going. Keep that lawn green. Keep it looking good. We got Halloween coming up. It's about time to do some 2600 for me in next week sometime and do some videos on that. I did fertilize after the blackout if you missed last week's podcast. It's just we had that hurricane come through, and I was like, man, I don't want to be putting up content about putting nitrogen down when we have a hurricane come through. So that'll all be coming up on the channel here soon. But that was some basic information there for warm season turf. Now I'm going to go through and do some specific questions that I'm getting on warm season turf, and I'll probably focus even a little bit more on Florida because Florida is very active right now coming through for the rest of the podcast. So let's get into some more specific questions that I'm getting out of our Facebook groups. All right, I wanted to step in here real quick in between before we get to talking about the fungicides. I wanted to talk to those of you that are kind of newer to the community. What happens every year this time of year in Florida, we'll have people that start coming into the community. I don't know if they're people that have just moved here. Well, it's a combination of things. It's people that have just moved to Florida for the fall. They've moved down here, they got a new house, and they're starting to learn about lawn care. It's people who maybe moved here in the spring, but then summer got away from them. The rainy season kind of did things. You've had hurricanes, all kind of stuff. Now they're just getting to it. But basically you have new homeowners. Then you also have people that we would term snowbirds, people that come down and live here during the winter. They're just coming back down now to check out their house and get things opened up, and they can have time to work on the lawn, and so they'll come and start looking for information. But it's a lot of stuff like that. And they're basically people that are just starting. So a lot of you that listen to this, you have been working on the lawn all year, maybe for a couple years, but I'm mainly talking right now to those of you that are just starting out. The reason I want to talk to you specifically is because I want to set your expectations for results up correctly, and that is that you're going to get slow results. We are at basically the end of the season. If you recall, I have a map that I kind of show of Florida where we have North Florida, South Florida, and then like the transition zone. And that map I use to understand, is your lawn going to go dormant or not? Pretty much south of I-4, Interstate 4 that cuts across from Tampa over to Orlando, south of I-4, for the most part, you won't go dormant in the winter. And of course, the further south you get down towards Miami, you definitely are not going to go dormant. Your lawn will be green all year long. And in Miami, you're mowing weekly, even during the winter. The further north you get, though, so I'm over in Bradenton, over by the Tampa Bay area, over by there. Born and raised in St. Pete. Now, St. Pete's its own like microclimate because it's a peninsula surrounded by water, so it naturally stays a lot warmer than other areas. But Bradenton has still got water around it, Manatee River, Gulf of Mexico, stays pretty warm. So we typically, in most years, we're not going to go dormant, and we're right on that I-4 line, essentially, right? We're not going to go dormant in most years. However, if we do have a cold winter, then the lawns will go dormant. That being said, you're just now starting to work on your lawn. It's only late October right now. No matter really where you are, unless you're in far north Florida, you've got some season left. Far north Florida, you'll be going dormant pretty soon. Remember, I talk about as long as you're mowing, you can be throwing. But North Florida, Tallahassee, up that way, you're going to be going dormant pretty soon. Closer to the water you are, though, the warmer you will stay for longer. But the idea is if you're trying to recover your lawn, I want you to understand it's going to be slow. And it's not just from the cold weather. That's what we think of with winter, but it's really from the shorter days. Remember, our lawns are fueled by the sun. All plants are. That's what photosynthesis is, right? It requires sunlight. That's the basis of photosynthesis. And so when the days are shorter, naturally you don't have as much sunlight. The other thing is the sun is a little bit different angle in the sky. It's quote unquote lower in the sky, so you're not getting the direct sun. Even on areas that are still indirect sun, they're not getting the same direct sun now that they would have gotten in August or July. That's just because the angles of the sun change. There's also, we don't lose our leaves in Florida. You know, up north, a lot of lawns can stay greener because the leaves fall off the trees. You clean them up, and now sunlight gets through longer. The grass will stay greener longer. Down here, our leaves don't fall off the trees, so sunlight, shade from tree areas becomes worse. And in fact, you might see areas of your lawn recede if there are shade. It's called etiolation, thinning out of the turf. That'll happen, and that's all just from natural winter. I have said often, I remember a few years ago, Brett, when he originally got some Bimini Bermuda, we had an overcast winter. We don't typically have gray skies here in the winter like you guys do in the Midwest, which is one of the reasons a lot of folks watch my content all during the winter, is I always promise I'll give you sunshine and blue skies in my content, even if you're in Indiana. And that's a positive thing when you have to live with those gray skies. Trust me, my friends in the Midwest, I feel for you when the sky is the same color as the street that you're driving on. That I understand how that feels. I'll give you those sunny blue skies. But we happened to this I think it was like 3 years ago now, we had this overcast winter, and his front yard, which is 100% sun, it thinned out just from the overcast skies. Now, Bermuda is highly sensitive to it, but it just illustrates the point that we have slower growth. We have the turf naturally wanting to recede. Remember, it's coming out of summer, which was the rainy season, number one. And number two, long days. And so that's why you're mowing all summer, even if you can't fertilize because you're subject to the laws, the whimsical laws of Florida, and you can't put down nitrogen. You're still mowing every 3 to 4 days in the summer. Well, now that's made big plants. Those stolons have lengthened big time, right? Big, fat, thick stolons, long stolons. Now we have less sunlight to fuel that, so that plant is naturally going to recede a little bit and start to thin out just naturally, just from the lower days, shorter days. But if you have any type of shade now, it's just compounded and it's made worse. So now think about your lawn that's got a big brown spot from something that happened in the summer. Who knows, right? That's the other thing. A lot of people come in brand new and they'll have a brown spot and they'll say, what caused this? I'm like, bro, I have no idea. At this point in the year, after everything we've been through, from insects to disease to hurricanes to flooding to water washing across, I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? I have no idea what created the brown spot. No one does. But what I do know is it can recover, but it's going to be slow. And that's the whole point of this little thing here. It's going to be a slow recovery. So I want you to still stick to the basics, especially if you're south of I-4 and your lawn hasn't gone dormant. Yeah, stick to the basics. Mowing tall, mowing as frequently as you can, as you need to. Fertilize every 30 days. Nitrogen drives the bus. Okay? Spot spray weeds that are there. Use your biostimulants. Sea kelp especially helps. Just stick to those basics. Do what you know you have to do, knowing that you're going to have a slowing of growth just from the conditions. Now, the other thing that this does do is those of you who like to throw down, now's the time to pack in the nitrogen because you don't have to worry about the dreaded flushes of growth. I love that. People are so scared of nitrogen. I got disease and I don't want to throw down any nitrogen because I can't stand the flushes of growth. So worried about it. You push through it, brother. You feed that cold. Eat on through. Anyway, you can do that. You don't have to worry about flushes of growth. The natural turf is slow. And so it's really cool to see nice, dark blue-green turf that's not growing very fast. I love that. And that's what you get in the winter. So just know, though, if you do have thin spots that you're going to recover, you remember I had a project a couple years ago. I had some areas I lost. Well, actually, no, it was common Bermuda that was in there, and I killed off the common Bermuda using the Fusilade 2 mixed with the Recognition herbicide overbiter, which I've done a lot of content on that. Well, that killed all that Bermuda off. Well, now I got to do something, so I put plugs in there, and it took all the way until the next year. I want to say even into April before it was really filled in. So a good 5 months to really fill all in. And if we would have done that in the spring, if I would have planted those plugs in May, I would have said it would take in 1 month to fill in, because you're at the different part of the growth curve, longer days, things are running, it's encouraging it to go. So the long and the short of it is, yeah, things will recover. You got to stick to the basics, but don't expect things to happen real quick. And this goes with other stuff too. When you go to spray weeds, the weeds won't die as fast because it's cooler. Things are a little bit slower. When you fertilize your lawn, it won't green up as fast. The lawn is naturally growing slower, so it's not going to take in the fertilizer as fast, so it's not going to green up as fast. So whereas you put down flagship, say in July, and you get a result in 3 or 4 days, it may be 6, 7, or 8 days now, just because the grass is growing slower. Things have slowed down. That's the what I'm talking about here. So I just want to set those expectations right before we continue on in our content. And don't forget, I got a lot of content on the Lawn Care Nut channel too. I'm actually going to go edit right now a video I did just kind of doing a full update of my lawn and the things that I'm dealing with, because I have fertilized, I have sprayed weeds, I've got tropical signal grass, I got all these things coming into my lawn that you do too. So check out the Lawn Care Nut channel on YouTube for my vlogs that also give you a lot more detail on Florida lawn care. Okay, here's a topic that's coming in a lot. It's kind of similar to what I just talked about, but we're seeing this a lot in Florida. Again, South Texas. Man, the more you look at it, South Texas is literally the same as Florida. I need to do a little bit more research on what you guys have going on in winter. But I got one here. This gentleman came through, Chris, he came through the hurricane. He says, my yard got pretty messed up from spot spraying some Spectricide, a tornado coming through, and then a tree landed on his roof, and whacked with tiles, and then people walking on it from cleaning up. So basically, his lawn is trampled. He has giant bare spots, looks like St. Augustine grass, and it's on a side where it's in between fence and a house, so it's a lot shaded. It used to be nice grass there, he says, and now it's all beat up. He's like, oh man, what do I do? Well, so here's the thing. And so what I'm looking at, if you're listening, is I'm looking at a sparse St. Augustine strip that's maybe 15 feet wide and about 30 feet long. And there is St. Augustine around the edges, and the middle's all trampled out, but there is some living St. Augustine throughout. About 30% of it is living St. Augustine, and 70% is just dead trampled St. Augustine grass, and you can see the dead stolons there, okay? If I was looking at this and it was April, I would say all you need to do is blast that with fertilizer for the next 3 months, and it'll be thick. Now, it does have a challenge in that it's got fence on one side and house on the other as some palm trees. It must get enough sunlight, though, because Chris tells us he did have it looking good and thick. So we do know, he knows from his own knowledge of his own land, he learned his land, and he was able to have good grass there before. So that means he will be able to have good grass there again. It's just we need to realize you have a challenge now that not only is it beat up and there's a lot of dead spots, but you have some shade. So maybe it might take 4 months for his to come in, or 5, maybe a little longer, if you just worked with what was there. So remember, I try to encourage y'all to work with the grass that you have in every case, but when it comes to warm season turf, we have rhizomes and stolons that spread. They're called runners. I know this is redundant, but remember, repetition is the key to learning. You want to always think about when you're trying to fill in thin spots in a warm season lawn is how do I fuel more rhizome and more stolon growth? And the way you do that is with nitrogen and sunlight and water and mowing. Okay, those are the things. So what are we missing right now in this key moment is we're missing the sunlight. Not only because of the house and the fence that are blocking a lot of the sunlight and a few palm trees, but also because of those shorter days I mentioned. So there are some things working against us. Like I said, if this was spring, I would have just told them, just fertilize the heck out of it. You'll be fine. But because we're in the fall, it's a different strategy. That will not fill in from fertilizer alone. Guaranteed it will not. It will take a long time. So now you have to decide, am I going to be able to live with it as bare spots until the spring and the late spring? Or, because it won't start taking off for a while. Even in the spring, it's going to take till April before it really starts moving, in May mostly, right? It's going to be slow growing. So you got to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to live with it? Or you can sod. Sod's the easiest. Just go in. It's pretty trampled there, but I would still, I don't know. I haven't looked at the site close enough to know if I would need to rent a sod cutter for that. It's a small area. You could probably dig it out by hand or till it. It's just back-breaking work, man. It just is. Prepping for sod is just back-breaking work. Oh, I'm looking at some more. Actually, I'm looking at a lot more pictures here. It looks like this is a pretty big area. It's a little bigger than I thought. I was only looking at one picture. You'll probably need to rent a sod cutter, cut it all out and sod. Maybe this is 3 or 4 pallets. If it's St. Augustine grass, a pallet of St. Augustine grass covers 400 square feet. So when it's cut in squares, so I don't know. This looks like maybe it's 1,000 square feet on the side. So 3 pallets of sod, man, that's hard back-breaking work. You can do it. It's DIY-able. You can sod in Florida pretty much all year round. Let's see. Where is Chris? Did he say what part of Florida he's in? South Florida. Oh, he's in South. No, he's headed. Yeah, he's in South Florida. So you can sod all year round for sure. It'll just root slower. So sod is one thing. It'll be very difficult to find a company to sod right now after the hurricane and all that. It'll be very difficult. So this would be something you may want to DIY. It may even be difficult to find sod. You might want to start calling around for that. I hadn't even thought about that. I need to call my sod farm partners and find out how they came through the storms, right? Did they get flooding? What happened with them? I don't know if fields got flooded. No telling. So sod may be difficult to come by. Plugs are still available, and that's really what I think is the most DIY approachable way to fix bare spots in the fall. And that's really what this segment is about. I don't care who you are. If you're listening to me and you have warm season turf, especially down in Florida or in South Texas, and you have bare spots that you want to fix, I think plugs are the best option this time of year because it's something you can do to actively help. Now, it's still not going to fill in until the spring. I did my plugs when I had my palmetto beat up by grubs a couple years ago. You guys remember I sodded I plugged the bare spots. I mean, that wasn't filled in. That was Palmetto St. Augustine. That wasn't filled in until the next spring in the next year. So it still takes a while. But by putting some plugs in there, at least you did something, right, to get things going. And they will creep slowly through the winter, especially in South Florida. They're not going to move fast, and you're not going to see some miracle fix here. But putting the plug, and you'd plug right into this spot. You don't have to do any prep at all. You just plug right into what's there. All the dead trampled crap that you have, you plug right into it. Grass plugs. They're called sod pods. Okay, they come right out of Bethel Farms here. Beautiful soil, great growers. They have all the varieties. St. Augustine. They don't have Bahia, but they have St. Augustine, Zoysia, Bermuda, whatever you want. Put the plugs in there. That's what I would do. Any bare spot, any brown spot, put plugs in. If you can't sod, I think those are really your 2 best options. And then again, depending where you are, keep fertilizing. Keep hitting with RGS. Sea kelp helps too. He's in South Florida. He'll be fertilizing year round. He'll get slow creep. Everything will stay green. The existing grass, we're not killing it off. It's going to stay there. It's going to creep. He's going to put plugs in the areas and the thin spots. They're going to creep. And by next spring, it'll fill in nice and fast. So that's kind of how I would look at bare spots in warm season turf here in the fall, especially if you're anywhere in Florida or somewhere around mid to South Texas. All right, y'all, for this final segment of the podcast, what I want to talk to, again, we're going to stay on warm season turf. We're going to talk about applications we're doing here in the fall leading into winter, and I want to talk about fungicide applications, diseases that can affect our lawns over the winter. It's going to be a little bit different if you're further south versus a little further north, but it affects all warm season turf. Well, when I say that, I'm really mostly talking about those of you that are concerned about disease in the fall and the winter and warm season turf. It's going to be St. Augustine and Zoysia, number 1. A lot of concern there. And then centipede is also in there. Bahia and Bermuda, we're not so concerned about you with disease and fungicides through the winter. So I'm really talking to St. Augustine, Zoysia, and centipede. And the disease that I'm talking about is rhizoctonia, or what is called large patch. It's the same thing as what they call brown patch that affects cool season lawns, mostly tall fescue through the summer. Well, in the fall and the winter, it's rhizoctonia is called large patch as a common name, and it affects our warm season grasses primarily, St. Augustine and Zoysia heavily, and then also centipede. So what have I done over the years? I've tried some different strategies. My original strategy back when I first moved to this house in Florida where I have so much St. Augustine grass was to do what I call the bulletproof strategy. That's going to be azoxystrobin, which is Scott's Disease X. That's a granular that you can get right from the store. And then propiconazole, which is a different active ingredient and different chemical classification or mode of actions. And you can get that in liquids under bioadvanced fungus control. That active ingredient is propiconazole. Now, always check that for yourself, that active ingredients change. But that's what it was. And that was what I called the bulletproof strategy. That was store-bought applications. Very, very easy. I would do them both on the same day. And I'm talking about preventatives now. Preventative or corrective, really. There's different rates for each. But for the purpose of this talk here today in this podcast, we're talking about preventing this large patch going into the fall and the winter. And so I'd put that down according to label directions, put those down on the same day. That's my bulletproof strategy. 2 different modes of action to prevent the rhizoctonia brown patch in the lawn. Did it help? Yes. It was not foolproof. I had breakthrough in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's because I didn't do a second app as well, so you got to put it on me because I'm a typical homeowner just like you. I have time to do one. Sometimes I don't have the time to do the second one. Things get busy, especially in Florida. That second app comes sometime around Christmas time. You know what I'm saying? So it can be a little bit of a challenge, but I had decent results with that. And then in the last couple of years, I thought, you know what? I've talked about this in other ways too. I thought I'm going to try to be a little more environmentally friendly. I'm going to try to reduce my use of the IDEs, IDEs. Those are pesticides. Under pesticides, you have herbicides that kill plants. You have insecticides that kill bugs. And then you have fungicides that kill fungus. And so that's what we're talking about, IDEs. And I was trying to reduce my use of those. I thought that's a way that I can be environmentally friendly. And because I'm teaching my audience, hey guys, look, what I'm going to try to do is live through the damage. Just let it do its thing, right? And not treat the lawn. Well, and that bit me in the rear end a couple of times. My zoysia just got raked over the coals. Now, again, I am in Bradenton, Florida, south of Tampa Bay. And so we're in this zone where some years, if we have a regular normal winter or a warm winter, my lawns will not go dormant. My zoysia or my St. Augustine, they just don't go dormant. They don't really grow a lot. I'm mowing every 10, sometimes even 14 days, but they're green, dark green, baby. Because they just suck up that nitrogen, but no flushes of growth because you have shorter days and cooler temps, right? And so, but then there are some winters where we have an extremely cold winter and they will go dormant. All right, so that's kind of how I'm at. But further south of me in South Florida, they don't go dormant at all. Pretty much like Naples and down there, and then on the other coast, like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, that area down there, Pembroke Pines, they don't go dormant ever. So they're always growing. So this is really more of something that you're going to notice in our area here because of the green, but you'll see it even further north, even if you're in the middle of Texas. And by the way, when I talk about South Texas, I'm really hitting a lot of you on the Gulf Coast too. Some of Louisiana dips down pretty far into the Gulf there and you get some warmer temps. You know what I'm saying? But those of you further north you're still in the South, but your lawns go dormant. Your St. Augustine goes dormant in other parts of Texas and that. You still want to apply these fungicides now because your lawn is not dormant yet, and it won't go dormant for another couple of months possibly, another month anyway. And so you don't want to have the disease working its way into winter because then coming out, the spots will show. So what will happen is even if your lawn goes dormant, you're further north than I'm talking about, and you don't apply the fungicide, the disease can still get in there in the fall. You might notice it a little bit, but those damaged spots when you come spring, they will not recover as fast, and you'll see them then. And even the disease can start working again then in the spring. So no matter who you are, it's good to have preventative. But for those of us further into South Florida and South Texas, it's even more important because our lawns stay green all season. It's just going to show as an eyesore even longer. And like I said, I tried to do that I tried to just do no IDEs. I just tried to do no fungicides. For some reason, the last few years, I've been led to want to not use any fungicides. I just feel like out of all the IDEs we use, and I don't have any scientific proof here. This is my gut feel, okay? Just take it for what it is. I feel like the fungicides are the ones that kind of do the worst damage to the soils and that. I just feel that way. Because in a lot of cases, fungi are good for us, right? And so you have to realize that when you're putting down a fungicide that's killing these pathogen fungus that we don't like, this rhizoctonia, it's also hurting the good fungi. And I don't know. So that's just me. Maybe I've watched too much of that Paul Stamets guy. He's the guy that wears the mushroom hat. Maybe I've watched too much of his stuff. on Joe Rogan. I'm sure I've been Roganified that way, but anyway, I've just been led to not use fungicides, so I've practiced integrated pest management here and there, which is where I only use them when like you have to, like when it starts to affect the crop. That's more like a corrective. I don't know. I've just tried to stay away from them. It's bit me in the butt. If you follow me this whole summer, I didn't do fungicides earlier in the spring. Well, I did some, but I didn't keep up with them because, again, let's be more environmentally friendly. I got racked by gray leaf spot in my palmetto. I'm just saying, what I'm trying to tell you all is that's over for me. I'm applying fungicides according to the labels. I'm going to use the smartest fungicides I can, but I'm going to use every single fungicide that I can. I'm going to get them all. I am going to blanket my lawn with fungicides within reason. Okay, don't quote me on that as being crazy. What I'm saying is I'm going to use the best fungicide for the problems that I know that I have in my lawn, the problems that have ravaged me already that I have the data on. I'm going to choose the best fungicides for those going forward, and I'm going to use them to the max rates on the label. That's what I'm going to do because I'm tired of it. And so for us, right now, the time is to go ahead and prevent. So I got a new product that came to me, and by the way, you can do fungicides at the same time as pre-emergent and fertilizer, especially the one we're going to talk about today. This one does need to be watered in, at least the way that we're going to talk about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one of these deep dives on a fungicide. Now, I'm not going to do anything with pricing and coverage necessarily in this podcast. This podcast is to go into a little bit more of the active ingredients and just kind of learn a few things that I've noticed. I've read the label. I've read their spec sheets, and it's called Armada. I guess I haven't told you that yet. It's called Armada by Enview, E-N-V-U. Enview and Bayer. I don't know if Enview bought Bayer or Bayer sold to Enview or what the heck it was, but Enview is now what Bayer was, so this is a Bayer product. And it's a brand new one. They gave it to me. The local rep here gave it to me to use, and so I'm very happy about that. So I've gone ahead and gone in. This is like one of the latest and greatest fungicides, and this is actually a fungicide. It's 2 active ingredients. And so it's kind of cool. It's very similar to what we've done in the past, but different active ingredients. And anyway, we're just going to go into it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to look at it, and we're going to dig in. So if you're watching on YouTube, I've got a lot of visuals here, but I'll do my best to describe this again because I realize a lot of you are out there and you're listening. So this is Armada. This is a WDG, which is a water dispersible granule. So this is a product that you'll be weighing out. So you will need a good scale with this, especially it's got some pretty low use rates. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into some of the product guides that they have, and we're going to talk about it and look through this fungicide and talk about some of the things that make it a little bit different. The first thing is it's got 2 active ingredients, and we've talked about that before. The reason I've talked about the bulletproof strategy, why I've called it that's mine, which was azoxystrobin and propiconazole, 2 readily available, very common fungicides from different chemical classes. The reason you use both is because these diseases, they have a way, they can build resistance quickly. I guess something to do with fungicides, there's concern in the industry with some of these pathogens developing resistance to these active ingredients or these modes of action. And so what most experts will recommend when you're doing fungicides is that you don't do a single chemical class, that you either do 2 at the same time or you rotate and you do one for your first app and a different one for the second. You could do either strategy works. In the case of the product we're talking about today, and in the case of my bulletproof strategy, it's doing 2 different chemical classes at the same time. Just, again, it's kind of like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's the same thing. And so this one is we'll call this Bulletproof 2. And what Bulletproof 2 is it's Armada, and it is an active ingredient called triadimethone, triadimethone, triadimethone. We'll call it that. We'll call it triadimethone. I like to pronounce things phonetically, hooked on phonics, baby. Triadimethone. And it's a class 3. So class 3s are DMI inhibitors. That's the same as propiconazole. So propiconazole that we've used for all these years, is also a DMI inhibitor. This is a different one. This triadimethone is a different active ingredient, but it's in the same chemical class. Now think about this. What's interesting about these, I'm calling them lawn pharmaceuticals, these IDEs, is what they do is they disrupt the normal functions of, in this case, the fungus. So the fungus has a way of growing and spreading, right? It has its way of doing that. Its growth method. Its way of recycling itself or growing and spreading, right? It's just got its thing that it does. And scientists can look at all of the processes that allow it to do what it does. And what they can then do is find a chemical that they can get into the fungus that will disrupt a part of that chain. Life is a delicate chain, okay? For you to be living, I've talked about this before, think of all of the functions inside of your body right now that are working together in order for you to be alive. If one of those got interrupted, you would die. Now, some things might be slower. Maybe you get a disease that's in your body that may take weeks or months to kill you, right? That's a slow one. But then there are also fast things that if your heart just stopped all of a sudden, you would die. So there's different, but either way, if your heart gets stopped or you get a bloodborne disease that takes over your cells, like cancer, for example, those are two things that are they're interrupting your body's processes, okay? The same is with a fungus. All they got to do is interrupt one process within the chain of life, and the whole thing will die. And so DMI fungicides, they are absorbed into the leaf tissue of the plant. And what they do, these DMIs, is they disrupt the membranes of fungal cells and organelles after the spores have germinated. So I'm just reading this right from InView's website. DMI fungicides, or DMI inhibitors, disrupt the membranes of fungal cells. So everything's made up of cells, and the cell has a membrane. This chemical disrupts those membranes around the cells. Now, you can imagine that membrane is a protective device, allowing things to go in and out, correct? So if that membrane is destroyed, now the whole cell will break down. And if you're breaking down cells within the fungus or within the pathogen, it's going to die. You would think fairly quickly, right? This chemical just has to get its way all the way through the entire apparatus, essentially. So I'll read this again. DMI inhibitors, or triadimefon, class 3 DMI inhibitor. DMIs disrupt the membranes of fungal cells and organelles after the spores have germinated. So it's also after spores have germinated, so it must be early in their reproductive cycle. It says it prevents fungal growth because sterols are required for fungal growth. DMIs prevent fungal growth and eventually kill the fungus. That's what I said. It interrupts the life chain of the fungus. By the way, I'm pretty sure this is how most of the pharmaceuticals that you ingest in your body work too. They attack the pathogen in a similar way. I think all of this stuff works the same. This one just happened to be tested and works on fungus in lawns, right? So pretty cool. The thing to think about here is this product, this triadimefon class 3 DMI inhibitor, is mostly something that's going to absorb through leaf tissue. That's important, okay? So that's the first of the active ingredients in Armada fungicide. Pretty cool how that works, okay? Now the second one is a QOL inhibitor. And its name is trifloxystrobin. I used to date her in college. Very nice girl, but I would definitely not be going back to her. She's a strobin. You got to watch those strobins. And you'll recognize the strobin name right from azoxystrobin. And that's because this is a class 11. Trifloxystrobin is a cousin to azoxystrobin. I never dated her, but I dated the trifloxystrobin. Anyway, class 11, so a different mode of action. But are you seeing the similarities here? This is what you might call a better take or an updated take on that original bulletproof strategy, because the original bulletproof strategy, okay, was a DMI and a strobin, and this is also a DNI and a strobin. All right, class 11, QOL inhibitor. QOL, or quinone outside inhibitor, or maybe it's quinone, Quinone, that's the Q. Quinone outside inhibitor. So QOL fungicides work by blocking the ability of plant pathogens to produce energy. They do this by interfering with the transfer of electrons at the quinol oxidation site of the cytochrome BC1 complex. This prevents the formation of ATP, which stops the production of energy in the fungal cell. I did not take the time to dig into that one too much, but you can see a lot of cool names, a lot of keyword. I mean, what you do, and maybe I'll do this on another episode. I didn't have time to do it on this one. I did on the last one a little bit. I would dig into these words like quinol because it says that they work by blocking the ability of plant pathogens to produce energy. They do this by interfering with the transfer of electrons at the quinol oxidation site. So I would just Google search quinol oxidation site and understand what that is. And I did that a little bit. I didn't take notes, but I guess we'll go into it now. The oxidation of quinol entails an obligatory bifurcation of the two electrons. Okay, so we're talking about something going on in the cells here. And again, I don't want to get, this is a podcast, right? So I don't want to get too complicated in it, but it is fun to research those keywords and learn more. Now, as I read deeper, though, I think about something. I'm looking here on their product fact sheet, and it's talking about systemic, how these different fungicides get into the plants, these two different ones systemically, and that means that they get into the plant. That's what systemic means, and work their way through. And you got to realize, and we keep talking about how this is disrupting some sort of the chain of life, it's got to get into the plant usually to do that. This is opposed to something that's working on the outside, okay? So systemic. But the interesting thing they said about the DMI, I think I mentioned earlier, it penetrates or absorbs through the leaves, but they're using a term here, acropedal penetrant. So the triadimethon, the DMI, the class 3 active ingredient has acropedal is an acropedal penetrant. I mean, maybe that's where I can make some jokes about that, but I did look it up. I looked up the word acropedal. Acropedal, and it means it's used in botany, and upward from the base or point of attachment, outward toward the shoot and root. So I think that talks about the movement of it. If you break it down, the acropedal, and it's spelled acropetl, acropedal, and again it means upward from the base or point of attachment. The Greek word akron means tip, and the Latin word peter means seek. Greek means tip, and peter means seek. Seek the tip. Do not seek the treasure, right? Seek the tip. So it's acropedal. I probably should have researched the acropedal penetrant versus the trifloxystrobin, the group 11, is a localized penetrant. I guess I need to do a little more research on that one. I was thinking one of them might have gone through the roots. Maybe that's what acropedal is. Either way, it's a double penetrant, or it's a double systemic fungicide. Again, kind of like better, I guess you could say a better, new, improved type chemistry. So I got some more information too, because the main thing that it seems like InView is targeting with this fungicide is large patch, which is one of the reasons I'm super interested. So I've got now one of their solution sheets, they call it up, because they give you some really good information about application timing. But I'll go ahead and read what they say about the Armada. It says large patch symptoms vary, with patches ranging in diameter from 1 to 3 feet to over 20 feet. Patch interior becomes sunken and injured turf areas thin with a tan color. A useful diagnostic feature in the field is orange firing of the expanding outer ring, which indicates active infection. I've said that often. You'll see little orange or even bright yellow around the edges, and if you wear polarized sunglasses with brown or even tan rose lenses, you'll be able to see it even better. Damage by large patch, that was me adding. Damage by large patch can be long-lasting because infection occurs when warm season turf growth is slow. Yes, exactly right. So it's one of those things. Now, they talk about Armada can provide excellent control of large patch when timed correctly. The first fall fungicide application is most important. And listen to this. Time the first fall application when the average thatch temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, or when the average soil temperature at a 2-inch depth is 72 to 75. So right now, my soil temperature in Bradenton, Florida, at the 3-inch, 4-inch depth is 75. So I am right in the window. I am in the perfect window to make my application of Armada. So that's what I'm going to be doing. If you're further north than me and your soil temps are lower already, it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. It just means you miss the ideal perfect timing, but applying 3 weeks too late is better than applying not at all. And applying 4 weeks too late is better than applying not not at all. You guys get it. I've said that over and over and over again. This is not an all or nothing thing. This is a weather-driven business, and you got to do the best you can with the applications and the products that you have and the equipment that you have and the time that you have to devote to it. And just because you're just hearing about this now and you're 3 weeks too late, it doesn't mean you can't make a difference. And so I would get it down for sure. It also says a second fall application is recommended to extend protection. So one other thing, we're going to look a little bit more here deeply. It says apply at 2 gallons of spray volume per 1,000 square feet. So that's double what we normally do. But listen, to aid in penetration to crowns and stolons at lower spray volumes, a light watering in approximately 1/4 inch is necessary. So if you're going to do a lower spray volume, like 1 gallon per 1,000 like we do, you're going to want to water it in with a quarter inch of water. But they want to get this down to the crowns and stolons, I guess. So that's where it's going to be absorbing in, is down through there rather than through the leaf sheath on the top. They want it to get down. And again, that's why this is a disease that's down in the crowns and in the roots. One thing to go over, they do have this spec sheet that I believe, or it's product information sheet, Armada, and they've got the use rates here. And I think they have a typo because it says for large patch or zoysia patch, the rate is 1.2 to 1.5 FL.ounces, which stands for fluid ounces per 1,000. However, this is a WDG, so they need to take out that fluid and you need to weigh out your ounces. I did double check the label. The label does not show fluid ounces. It just shows 1.2 to 1.5 ounces. And because this is a dry product, it's automatically assumed you weigh it. So that's kind of interesting. But 1.2 to 1.5 ounces. So I'll convert that to grams because I'll do that when I do the application because grams is a little bit more of an accurate measurement. But 1.2 to 1.5 ounces, and you can repeat application 28 days later, and that's per 1,000. So we're going to be doing that. Looks like at the one, if you were at the max rate, and I haven't looked at max apps per year. Oh, actually, here it is right here. If you use the max rate of 1.5, which of course I've already explained to you all that because funguses have destroyed my lawn so often recently, I'm going to go max rate and nothing else. It's like if there's a turbo button on my battery powered weed whacker or my battery powered blower, I always mash the turbo button. You don't give me a turbo button on my blower so I can't mash it. And it's the same with these chems, brothers. You don't give me a max rate so I can't use it. I'm going max rate. So at 1.5, the max rate, I will get 21,300 square feet of coverage out of one bottle. Might as well just see what it costs real fast before we end this up. Armada. Look for a lot more coming out on this. Armada. We'll go to our friends at Do My Own. They are the best at getting stuff to us. $176. 176 divided by 21. Did I say 21,300? $8.26 per 1,000. Let's make sure. 176 divided by 21,300, 21.38. $8.26 per 1,000. So if you have a times, let's say a 5,000 square foot lawn, times 5, I'm using a calculator, $41 an app. So if you're a homeowner and you have a 5,000 square foot lawn, you got to invest the 176 up front, okay? But it's $41 an app. You get, few apps out of that. $41 an app, 5,000 square foot lawn. That's probably going to come in cheaper than the old homeowner go to the store stuff. Y'all think when it comes to the IDs, y'all always think the store-bought's going to be cheaper, but it's not. It's actually typically the pro stuff is cheaper. You just have to invest more of a lump up front, and then sit on a lot of product. That's the challenge, right? Because these things are not made for us. These things are made for folks that are doing routes where they'll use several bottles of this a day, or if you're a chem lawn, they're ordering like totes of this stuff. So all I'm trying to say, whole different ballgame. I will break a lot more of this down on the Lawn Care Nut channel, so you guys make sure you subscribe there. You guys know I kind of get on these little kicks where I learn a little something new, and then I flesh the content out over these different mediums. For this one, it's going to be this new Armada fungicide, and I did a bunch of studying this morning while drinking my coffee, made a bunch of notes, came here, rambled it off to you guys here on the podcast. So now we kind of have some initial deep thoughts on it. We can flesh some more information out in comments below. I will write a blog post coming up this week, and then that one will be something that I actually go and study out and make sure all my definitions are correct and everything I know. and we'll publish that. Then we'll email that out to everyone along with this podcast. And then I'll make a how-to video on the Lawn Care Nut channel. Here's how to apply, and we'll go more into the costing of that and all that kind of stuff. So now you got the YouTube video that gives you the how-to, and now you have this complete circle of how to use this Armada fungicide, right? In depth. You can absorb the content in any way you want. You can get probably 99% of your questions answered, because as I do this, I see the questions coming in, right? That's why we do it. And then I add that to the content going forward. And we create a nice little ball of content, nice little silo content here, silo of content, to use an SEO term, about Armada fungicide. So hopefully one of these days, the Enviews of the world will wake up and realize that this is a valuable service. I mean, again, the local reps, awesome. Thank you. So they get it. I'm talking about the corporate side. I know that I bet the corporate marketing folks at Enview understand the value of this. So you guys should partner with me was what I'm saying. We could do a lot of great things. We could really get out there. And yes, my podcast here is mostly homeowners, but there are a lot of lawn professionals that come here. Trust me, I hear them all the time. Alan, we put on your content on Monday mornings as training for our guys. I hear that quite often. So just came back from the expo, so always reminds me of those types of things. All right, guys, that's enough. All right, y'all, so here's an interesting segment. I asked in our Florida Lawn Care Nuts group for folks to send me copies of their professional lawn services invoice that they left. I thought it'd be really cool to go through and see, what are the professional spray companies? What are they applying right now? What are they doing? And what products are they using? I think it's so cool to see what they're doing and kind of compare it to what we're doing and find the similarities and the differences, and maybe explore why they're doing what they do. It'd be cool stuff, just really neat. And why not? We can learn from them, right? These are people that do this day in and day out, making applications, turning lawns green, killing weeds. Let's see what they're putting down. And so I've gotten a few in. Now this one, let me just caveat this. This one is from July. And I've got a few more that have come in, but I've got to go through them. Sometimes I have to follow up and ask for more information to make sure that I get these, because I don't want to say anything wrong about what one of these companies is putting down, so I sometimes have questions, this and this and that. But the one we're going to go over now is from Jacksonville, Florida. So this is northeast Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, and it is from July, early July. This was done July 8th of 2024. So a couple things to keep in mind if you're listening. Jacksonville does not have the nitrogen phosphorus bans that we do down here. I guess there's no nitrogen leaching or whatever up there for some reason, or it's not a concern, or their legislature hasn't seen it that way, or whatever it is. No bans. So you're going to see that. But let's look at what this company was putting down. This is a 3,500 square foot lawn. I'm just going to start off and just say up front, the amount of stuff that they're getting for the price, this is a good application, and it's a fair price. Just based on what I know, what we used to charge. And again, my company, when I did this, I worked for True Green. I mean, the last time I worked there was 2012. Boy, that's hard to believe. 2012. Wow. Was I even there? Yeah, that is when I left. Boy, the memories fade, but it's been a while. So I remember pricing from back then. So, but I can try to just advance the pricing for now and use inflation and all of that. And the long and the short of it is, this is a 3,500 square foot lawn application price, $57. I think that is extremely fair when you look at what he got. So let's go through and see what his name is Stan. What Stan got here in Jacksonville, Florida. So treatment, it says to water in this application. By the way, again, if you're watching on YouTube, I will put this up on the screen and show you. The name of the company is called Trutco, 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 Lawn and Pest Control. And treatment, water in this application. So that's what they're telling them. Today we applied a broadcast weed treatment, another pre-emergent weed barrier, a high iron fertilizer, and an insect treatment. They're going to give you each one of those, but think about all of that for $57. On 3,500 square feet. I maybe we'll continue with this. I'll do some math and see what it would cost one of us to have done all that. Ooh, that'd be pretty interesting, actually. I'll have to add that in a future segment. But that's a lot. Let's go through what he got. So his application of this is, so that, remember, guys, this is a liquid blanket application. Liquid blanket application. This is all mixed in the same tank. All right, all of this is. So he has to walk the lawn only one time. And that's why they can give him so much stuff, because the labor on this is low, because it can be all tank mixed together, all sprayed, all of it needs to be watered in from the customer. So they save in the labor, they're able to give you more stuff, more value for your money. Good job, Trutco. So check it out. Application, great. Gator Excel Iron Plus. Okay, so that's a liquid fertilizer. They did it at 3 ounces per 1,000. So I can look up Gator Plus. It's a Howard's product, and it is a 1200, so 12% urea nitrogen, 6% chelated iron, 2% chelated manganese, and 4% sulfur. So it's kind of similar to the 700 green effect that we have, except this has got a little bit more nitrogen, as well as it's got manganese. Yeah, manganese, which the 700 doesn't. But this is a great product. This is really good. This is going to have foliar absorption, which is fine because you think about, well, they're telling them to water it in, but all the foliar absorption happens in the first few minutes. Most of it does. And the homeowner is not going to water it in that fast. They probably won't even water it in for a couple of days in most cases, right? So Gator Excel Iron Plus, that's really cool. That's a neat treatment there, 3 ounces per 1,000. Now, keep in mind, this is July, so he's not pushing a ton of growth. It is still a rainy season there. I don't know if they got a lot of rain this year in Jacksonville, but it is the rainy season, so the lawns are growing fast. You're going to find these are probably all St. Augustine lawns. I'll tell you why in a second. But they're probably growing pretty fast, so they don't want to hammer them with too much nitrogen. They're just giving them enough for a little bit of a green pop, all right? Here's the main thing, though. MSM turf. So that is methylfuron methyl. That is a tried and true broadleaf herbicide for St. Augustine grass. Definitely not for Bahia grass. And I think even some zoysia can be sensitive to it. Even though zoysia is on the label of MSM, it calls out only 2 certain ones, Meyer and Emerald. So it says right here, St. Augustine Bermuda grass. Oh, you can use it on Bermuda. And zoysia grass, Myers and Emerald apply 0.25 to 1.0 ounces of MSM turf herbicide per acre. So it can be used now. See, it can be used to kill Bahia grass in these others. So if you have Bahia grass invading your Bermuda, you can use it to kill it. So apparently this is probably going to be a mostly St. Augustine grass yard. But anyway, methylfuron methyl, excellent choice for broadleaf weed control across St. Augustine grass in the summer in the heat. Oh, one other thing I was going to look at. I was going to see if there was a heat restriction on it. I've used MSM before, but only when it was in other things. Do not apply MSM turf herbicide to turf under stress from drought, insects, disease, cold temperatures, high temperatures above 85 degrees Fahrenheit on cool season grasses, or poor fertility as injury may result. So that says if it's 85 on cool season. I guess you're okay on warm season turf. There's really no temperature restriction there. Again, I've only used it when it's in other things. I've never used it by itself that I can remember. So, but either way, that's pretty cool. Something available to us once again. Tall Star P. So Tall Star, that is your, what you guys know is bifenthrin as an active ingredient. Tall Star is a brand name. I think that's like a 7.9% concentration. Of course, they mix that in water. Did they give us the app rate on that? I don't know. Yeah, 1 ounce per 1,000. So there you go. That's a standard rate. So they're using the Tall Star probably for sod webworm, because they probably just seen sod webworm in the area, and so they know that the bifenthrin it's not going to really do any type of prevention in the future, but if there is any sod webworm there, bam, they're gone. It's also going to handle any nuisance pests, ants, fleas, spiders, ticks, stuff that you're trying to enjoy the lawn, even though we don't really enjoy St. Augustine lawns barefoot, but people do it. And so this is going to kill any nuisance pests that are in the lawn too. So very smart to include Tall Star. And then their next insecticide is LADA 2F, L-A-D-A. I had not heard of this, LADA 2F, but what this is, it's just a rebranded imidacloprid, which you guys will remember as Merit. So Merit was the original brand name of imidacloprid, which is a neonicotinoid, a neonic that we always used for grub preventative. It was long-lasting for up to like 3 months or so, and the way it worked is that you'd get it into the soil, you'd water it in, it would get taken in by the grass plants, and then when the grubs, which feed on grass roots, when the grubs would feed, this chemical would make them feel like they're full. It would trigger the feeling of you have no appetite anymore, and so they would stop eating and then they would die. That's how the product worked. I've talked about different fungicides in this, or we will talk about different fungicides in this podcast, and we talk about how these ides, the way they work is they disrupt some part of the life cycle. Now, a grub or a fungus doesn't have as complicated of systems as a mammal like us, but they have very simple systems. A grub has very simple systems, and the simple system that imidacloprid interrupts is the system of telling it needs to feed, that it's not hungry, or that it's hungry, or whatever that system is in the grub. That's how it works, because neonicotinoids, of which imidacloprid is, neonic is, remember the word nicotine. It's that same similar type of chemical. And nicotine, what is it? It's an appetite suppressant. We know that in humans. Well, those same type of chemical classes, when ingested by a grub feeding on grass roots that have absorbed that neonicotinoid, it makes them feel full. It suppresses their appetite, and they die of starvation. That is how those products work. Really cool. I don't imagine that this application here in July is aimed at grubs, because the time to prevent grubs would have been earlier, and I would love to see their full year. I bet you they used a celiprin earlier in the season. I'll bet you their insect strategy all along is pretty smart. But my thought here that they might be using this to suppress mole cricket, maybe. Imidacloprid, it's mole cricket, I think suppression is listed on imidacloprid label. I would have to look at the app rates, and I did not go that deep into this. But that might be my assumption. Or maybe the imidacloprid is there in case the sod webworm does get through. Maybe it hatches, and then, I don't know, maybe it's a preventative for sod webworm. But if they would have applied a celiprin earlier in the year, I don't know, a lot of different things. It would be cool to really break this down with their agronomist. Which, if you guys, hey, Trutco, if you want to come on and talk about your strategy for the year, I would love to learn, because this looks great so far. But anyway, that's kind of cool. So you got 2 insecticides in this. Remember, 3,500 square feet, $57. And we got one more application. Now we're getting Resolute 4F. This is another product, and this is just another brand of prodiamine. Now, you guys know what prodiamine is. We use prodiamine. They're using it in July, which brings me to something I wanted to talk about that I am adding into my program for next year for Florida. Y'all understand, I have a program that's in the app. It's the basics. But when it comes to my Alan Hain, what Alan Hain does, I follow the nitrogen type recommendations in my app and stuff like that. But when it comes to products, to ides, man, I use all kind of different stuff, from fungicides to insecticides. I'm all over the board, to herbicides. I'm using different things, whatever I kind of look and see what I need. And one of the things I'm going to be doing is upping my pre-emergent game. I got hammered so bad this year by tropical signal grass. I always get a little bit of breakthrough, but usually my prodiamine app in the later spring carries me through. But this year, record rains just hammered me. And so I think I also have some, I think I have some different pre-emergents available to me that I can use. Pennant Magnum is one. Which is metellochlor. I got to read the label on that again, but that'll help me with some of the things I have, like doveweed suppression as well as Kalinga suppression. So anyway, I'm going to do a bigger pre-emergent game. Very interesting, though, that this company here is applying prodiamine in the summer. Again, I'm assuming that's got to be for crabgrass or some sort of signal grass. Being where they are, it probably germinates year round, and so they got to get that summer back up in there. Or maybe they've had a lot of rain and they think the product just needs that more. Who knows? But really cool. So you got a really good app here. You got fertilizer, you got weed control blanket, you got 2 types of insect control here, and you have a pre-emergent herbicide on top. So pre and post-emergent herbicide. So that's a good app for $57 on 3,500. Very interesting how that worked, and I thought that would be cool to go over that. So good job to Trutco, whoever you guys are up there in Jacksonville. Nice job. Some of you might be wondering, Alan, why does somebody from your Florida Lawn Care Nuts group have a professional lawn service? And I can tell you, and this is a shout out to you folks here like Stan that sent me this, a lot of our customers are people that have a professional lawn service, and they come to the internet because they read their invoice that's left here, and they see these things like this on here. MSM turf registration number 6622-146, 0.115 ounces per 1,000 square feet. They start reading that. They're like, boy, they're like me. They're curious. Well, this shit's getting put on my lawn. Why don't I go and do some Google searching? So they do, and they start reading, and they're going to come across my content somewhere, because as you guys know, the one thing that I do that no one else really does on the internet is I break down labels to the T. I read labels. I read every sentence of the label. And this one, we did a browse through of MSM turf. Not a good example. We're going to do some fungicides later. A browse through, not a good example. But my blog posts, and as I get into these little ruts that I'm in, not a rut, as I get on these little learning phases that I'm on about a product, I do more and more and more content along the way that gets more and more in detail, and I will eventually do blog posts on it, which is where I do the most detail and take pictures of the label, show me measuring it out, all of those things. No one else really does that. No one goes to that type of detail in the space of teaching like I do, but a lot of customers do. And so what happens is they go and they start Googling this stuff. They find me, and they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. They start watching my videos, and then they learn, oh, I can do some of this myself. They don't have the full confidence or time or ability or budget to take and get rid of their full lawn service, but they want to have a little fun with it. You know, it's almost just like, man, like if I need to have a transmission changed, I'm going to take that to my Toyota dealer, but if I need to change the oil, I can do that myself. Now, that's a total lie. I don't do that anymore. When I was younger, I did. Maybe that's not the best example. But there are some things that you want to kind of hack yourself, or you want to kind of supplement, you want to kind of add to. You know what I mean? It's like getting the pre-made meal at Publix and adding a little bit of your own spices to it before you throw it on. There's that kind of thing, right? And there's a lot of people, they want to add their own herbs and spices to the current program that their professional lawn service has. And that's what this is. And so they might do an app here, an app there, see what happens. Then they read the label and they understand what's been done. They can supplement things in between. Like if they like hydrotane and their company doesn't apply hydrotane, because that's a watering thing. The watering is still on the homeowner. The homeowner learns about hydrotane. Great. I've been watching. Here's what my product, my customer, or my Trutco full lawn and pest control here. This is what they're doing for me. I can go ahead and throw some hydrotane down in between and have a little bit of fun too, right? This is a lot of our customers are that folks. They throw a little more fertilizer down here and there. They throw a little hydrotane, a little something like that down, some biostimulants to do that. They throw seed down and they grow their own seed. They're also mowing. A lot of our customers are like that. So welcome to all of you that have professional lawn services that want to do your own thing. I think it would be fun to break more of these down. You can see I'm not interested in bashing the professional lawn services. My record on that has always been the opposite. I have a lot of respect for these professional lawn services. These are the guys and girls that do the things that I never had the balls to do. They're true entrepreneurs out there running small businesses, right? And they have their own program that they run, and it's for their customers, and it's their thing, and it's their branding. I think that's freaking cool, right? I support that. So any of you, even if you're listening and you're outside of Florida and you'd like to send me an invoice from your company, one of your professional lawn service companies that's been out, send it to me. You can just email it to me, alan@thelawcarenut.com, ALLYN at thelawcarenut.com. Email me a copy of it. Let me know the size of your lawn. And again, if the price is that I think is outrageous or something, I won't comment on anything negative. I'll white your name and stuff out. But I would just love to see what different companies are putting down. I'd like to see what kind of winterizers are going down up north right now. That would be super interesting to see too. So all right, y'all, so there you go. Hope you enjoyed this one. This one's been recorded over the last couple 2-3 weeks. I have been trying to keep these podcasts going week after week after week, and I plan to do that all during the winter, so I hope you'll listen. I might get into some other things. I might do a little bit more interview type stuff since it is the winter and there's not as much going on in lawn care. It allows me to maybe do interviews with people that are, specific in certain areas or know certain things, or I can learn something from experts, this kind of thing. So I think I might try to do some of that coming up over the winter. Of course, I'll always take your feedback on what you'd like to hear too on Lawns Across America. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the lawn.